Yup, you read that right. I earned more than 100k from online selling with zero capital as a gens, and I'm gonna tell you how I did it. If you're wondering kung posible ba talaga siya, kung paano ko yung nagawa, kung paano ako nagkamali at natuto, this conversation is for you. What's up? Next year, a Gen Z Web3 community builder and trader. If ngayon lang tayo nagkita, I usually talk about wealth building, goals, and minsan, life in general. So why are we having this conversation nga ba? Basically, I wanna put my thoughts and journey into videos, and you know how not a lot of people talk about these topics, especially sa Gen Zs? Yeah, I can be your friend to have these conversations with, along with many other people na baka nasa same boat din. Without further ado, let's get to it. It was back in 2020 when the pandemic hit. We all had a lot of time in our hands. And me, being me, I wanted to earn money. Kasi pre, nakatambay lang ako sa bahay noon. Tapos wala akong ginagawa. And of course, the fact na it was a really difficult time for a lot of us, if not all. Industries suffered, madaming nawalan ng trabaho. Pero pala, before we dive into that, let me tell you about my edge and privileges first. Baka kasi sabihin mo na, kaya nagawa ni Nixon kasi ganito, ganyan, meron siya ganito, ganyan, ganito, ganyan. Kung ano man yan, kasi kung oo, tama ka. Diba? I mean like, realistically speaking, syempre, iba-iba yung sitwasyon natin at iba-iba yung magiging mga factors for us to be able to achieve stuff and for us to be able to operate under certain situations. Pero yeah, bibigyan mo na kita ng context para sa same page tayo and you know what factors to consider if you're gonna try to pattern it sa gusto mong gawin. Number 1, I've been into retail ever since I can remember. Kasi I grew up surrounded by people in the retail industry. I get to ask about a lot of information and I get to see it being applied on a day-to-day basis. I basically grew up with it. And I used to always tag along sa nanay ko when it comes to visiting office, warehouses, ng mga suppliers and purchasers. With that, parang na-instill na lang siya sa akin as a child. Parang my brain was like a sponge, absorbing everything na nakikita ko at nalalaman ko. Which leads me to the second point na ako yung estudyante dati na nagdadala ng mga gamit para ibenta sa school. Depende kung anong uso ng mga panahong yun. So if you remember yung fidget spinner, yun, nagbenta ako noon. Nakamagkano rin ako noon. Tapos as a child, alam mo yung glow stick na binabali. Pag nakrak mo na siya, mag-glow in the dark siya. Ayun, nabenta rin ako noon. Actually, kahit ano na nakikita ko noon na may demand, tapos may bibili, I try to find suppliers na makakakuha ko ng mura lang din, nag-markup ako. Tapos yun. But the point is, I'm very familiar sa process from outsourcing suppliers, the supply chain, even at a smaller scale. So I didn't technically start from ground, from zero, na kailangan ko pa talaga siya aralin talaga. And number 2, I'm into cycling or sports. How is this relevant? Kasi I earned that 100k from selling bikes and bike parts. So kasi, di ba, pandemic, tapos walang transport, tapos ganito, yun na yun. Hindi, pero gawin natin yung kwento kasi this will all make sense later on. So going back sa pinaka-how at paano ko siya nagawa, is streamline natin at isa-isahin natin yung process and yung mga steps na ginawa ko para makamit, para ma-achieve yung 100k na yun. Okay, so number 1 is zero capital. My money and my budget wasn't big enough to order supplies in bulk. So, naghanap ako ng ways na it's either 1, minimal order lang, or number 2, I don't have to put out any initial capital. And guess what? I found a solution. Kaya nga natin ito pinag-uusapan ngayon. And it was the bike shop, my relative. Kasi before bikes and bike shops, ang dami ko na rin sinubukang i-online sell. I sold fruits, I sold Korean snacks, I sold homemade foods, I've sold fabric masks. Hindi ko na maalala yung iba, pero dami ko na-try. So, how does the zero capital work sa bike shops and bike supplies? Basically, I sell the items, tapos yung payment na makukuha ko from all the transactions, ibibigay sa akin yung cut ko. So, ako na rin baka lang dumiskarte kung paano ko siyang mabibenta and at what price and at what specific markup para may makukuha ako. Pero of course, yung justifiable naman considering the market situation, right? Looking back, natutunan ko yung dropshipping. Parang sabi ko na, parang dropshipping din pala yung ginagawa ko, pero kakilala ko yung supplier. So parang di siya nagmukhang dropshipping kasi relative ko siya. Pero parang dropshipping pala yung idea nung nangyari yun. But the point is, we made money and it worked. Number 2, I found the demand and I found the product that answers that demand or need ng mga tao. Kasi if we're gonna look at the market situation back then, nung pandemic, bawal lumabas, public transportation were basically non-existent during that time. So it's either you walk, you bike, or you ride the motorcycle. At kung anong transportation vehicle na meron ka nun. But in comparison to all of these, aside from walking, ang next cheapest is the bikes. Kaya sobrang taas ng market demand when it comes to bikes and bike parts ng mga panahon yun. Tapos, what made the situation even worse in the sense na dahil sa mga COVID restrictions, yung mga shipment and yung mga cargo na nagpapadala ng supply from China to the Philippines was super delayed dahil sa restrictions. So basically, ang taas ng demand tapos yung supply, it's constantly going down kasi binibili na ng mga tao pero walang nagre-replenish doon. Tumataas din yung price ng mga supplies ng mga panahon. So it's unfortunate na sobrang inconvenient in a sense. Paano ka na pupunta sa work nung maglalakad ka na lang, di ba? Sobrang hassle. So number 3 naman is I marketed it. May product na ako, may target customers na ako, and just have to know how to sell it and for the products to reach the customers. So doon na pumapasok yung marketing. Initially, I posted it in my Facebook stories, but of course, like limited lang naman yung mga tao na makakita nun, and considering the amount of friends and the fraction of that na into bikes and kailangan ng bikes is really small. So there was this friend, hello, if you're watching this, sabi niya, oy next, try mo i-post sa FB Marketplace kasi madami nagbibenta doon. So ako naman, sige, sabi ko, okay, try ko kasi wala namang mawawala eh. Basically, I have the product photos, I have the supplier, so wala naman ako nilalabas sa capital. All I had to do was do the effort to market it. So, pinost ko sa FB Marketplace. So, doon ako nagsimula. And you know what? You'll be really surprised kung gaano kalaki yung market sa FB Marketplace. Kasi personally, before that, hindi ako aware na sobrang thriving ng ecosystem sa FB Marketplace within FB. So parang doon ko lang na-realize na, man, it's a really good platform to buy and sell stuff. Kasi before that, ang alam ko ng OLX, tapos di ko alam na na ganun pala kalaki sa FB Marketplace at ganun siya kadalas na ginagamit ng mga tao. Kasi from that 100k net income, almost half or more than half of that came from FB Marketplace. So that's crazy. And take note, yung 100k na yun is net profit ko. So iba pa yung profit ng supplier, iba rin naman yung gross income. So, imagine how big would that be. Tapos, after a few weeks or I think months din of posting sa FB Marketplace, I decided to try out Shopee and Lazada. Which is kinda tricky at first kasi kailangan mo aralin like yung dashboard, yung interface, and all that. So, iba rin kasi sa Shopee, tas sa Lazada. So, pagkahiwalay mo talaga silang aaralin. Pero eventually, it paid off naman. Kasi mas madami ako na-reach na customers na outside Metro Manila. Kasi nasa Metro Manila ako ngayon. So, when I started it, I started shipping to people sa Mindanao, sa Baguio, sa Visayas. And people tend to trust these platforms more compared to individual sellers. Kasi syempre, like, may logistics sila, tapos mas trusted yung payment systems. In comparison to that person, hindi mo alam kung scammer ba talaga siya, kung legit ba yung binibenta niya. One thing to take note though, this was back in 2020. Iba yung landscape ng e-commerce and online selling ng mga panahon yun. If you're gonna notice, meron ng TikTok shops, live selling. Well, meron naman live selling before, pero like TikTok live selling, mas nagtatrive na siya in this kind of market. Pero looking back kasi, the online selling scene and the e-commerce industry back then, noong 2020, sobrang nagbago rin talaga siya. Delivery apps and online payment systems were more utilized in comparison to before that nang medyo skeptic pa yung mga tao at mas gusto nilang pumunta sa store tapos magbayad ng cash. And ito, according to DTI or the Department of Trade and Industry, from 1,700 from January to March 2020, the number of online businesses zoomed to around 88,000 by the year's end. So imagine 117 to 88k, that's like, do the math. Moreover, for the month of January 2021, online business registrations has already hit 93,380. And for sure, hindi pa lahat dyan nagre-register sa DTI. So imagine the amount of people that got to take the opportunity sa online selling. And isa na ako dun. So number 4, I learned about what I was selling. As I mentioned before, I was into cycling and sports. So para sa akin, mas madali na yung jargons, yung terms, and yung parts ng mga bikes. Although I wasn't well versed in it, I was lucky enough to have my uncle na pwede kong pagtanungan tapos may mechanic din sa bike shop. Kasi syempre, when you're selling the product, magtatanong yung customer na, oh, ganito, ganyan. And a lot of people were figuring out the biking world din. Kasi nga, di ba, pandemic, madaming dating nagko-commute tapos ngayon lang magbabike. So, lahat din sila, like, they're trying to figure it out kung ano ba yung dapat bilhin, ano ba yung dapat palitan. So, you really have to know kung ano ba yung kailangan nila at paano mo pa sila matutulungan. I didn't get to automate this kasi I was a one-woman team noong panahon yun. Kaya I really had to be aware of everything sa mga parts, sa mga bikes, sa mga types ng gulong, sa mga iba't ibang size ng bikes, frames, handlebars, bike pedals, shoes, and yung mga iba pang kailangan mo para mag-bike. Kasi walang ibang gagawa nun para sa akin. And of course, hindi ko naman sila alam from the get-go. Kaya, ayun, tanong lang ng tanong hanggang sa naging na-memorize ko na rin naman sila eventually. Sa araw-araw ko siyang ginagawa. And number 5, I closed deals. I got to talk to hundreds of people on a day-to-day basis. Pero syempre, hindi naman lahat yun bibili. Pero what's gonna matter is kung paano yung customer service ko noong mga panahong yun. How likely they are to come back to me kung may kailangan ulit sila, kung may papagawa sila, kung may kailangan silang bilhin, and if you get to close that deal. So ideally, you want na babalik at babalik sa'yo yung customer. Kasi hindi naman pwede na you get to acquire every single time na every single week, every single day, bagong customer ulit. Like yung customer acquisition, like ideally, you have to know how to acquire customers, but more than that, you have to know how to retain them and how to get reorders from them. Papasok na rin dito yung negotiation skills. Siyempre, hindi naman mawawala yung mga tumatawad. Kalahin mo yun, may mga tao walang kasalanan pero humingi ng tawad. Buti pa sila. Yun, may mga naghahagel din, mga tumatawad. And of course, you want to be able to give a deal din na win-win for both of you. Hindi ka lugi, pero syempre, they get the most out of their money. Number 6, I was just consistent and I just went for it. It was a day in and day out thing. Kasi one thing, I have a lot more time compared to pre-pandemic. So, no hesitation, post agad, let's try this, let's try that. Kasi I have nothing to lose din naman. Only my time. And marami rin naman akong time nung panahon yun. Actually, lahat tayo, pati ikaw, most probably gumagano'n ka pa sa TikTok noon, di ba? So, I just went at it for 6 months straight. Above all the responsibility, recurring task na ganap ko sa buhay noon. Kahit Sundays, kasi especially the first few months, kasi sobrang taas talaga ng demand load. Kasi yun yung mga early stages ng pandemic. So, sobrang busy talaga. I had to book multiple orders at the same time para mapadala yung mga items. So, ito, feel ko ito rin yung tanong mo. So, next, bakit 6 months lang? If naka 100k ka sa 6 months na yun, bakit mo tinigil? 100k din yun, di ba? Saan ka pupulot ng 100k? So, ito, pag-uusapan natin. So, me, doing something new, mistakes were basically inevitable. Considering the market situation, logistics, payments, everything was new to me. So, ito yung mga ilang dahilan kung bakit hanggang 6 months lang din siya and ano yung mga mistakes na nagawa ko na pwede ko namang iwasan next time or kung saan ako natuto. So, number 1, I was too focused sa short term and didn't look into the possibilities of scaling it and sustaining it. So, basically, I had no plan. Bakit? Kasi it started unexpectedly. Di ko alam na magbubuo siya ng ganun. Di ko alam na ganun pala kalakas yung demand. Di ko alam na ganun pala siya kalakas when you translate it to the retail industry. So at that time, I was just riding the wave and going where the money was, which isn't bad naman, no? Pero it's not enough to be able to really sustain the business. Number 2, hindi ako nakapag-adapt. Diba, nung early stages ng pandemic, sobrang strict ko talaga. Pero as the time went by, as the 6 months went by, nagbabago na yung situation. Nagbabago na yung needs ng mga tao, nagbabago na yung demand, and dumadami na rin yung supply. Most people already had bikes, so iba na yung needs nila. And considering na yung iba, they opt for public transportation instead kaysa na mag-bike sila from house to work and work to house. And knowing na wala akong plan, hindi ako nakapag-adapt. Which leads me to point number 3, I basically just stopped. Ay hindi ako nakapag-adapt, hindi ko na-position yung sarili ko sa market na nangyayari nung panahong yun. So the income was like at the top of the chart and it slowly went on a downtrend. to the point na tinigil ko na lang siya. Bakit ko siya tinigil? Kasi nung time na yon iniisip ko na, okay, baka it was a phase lang pala. Pero looking back, I could have done something better pa para mo sustain yung stream of income mo yun. So considering my mistakes, ano nga ba yung sasabihin ko sa sarili ko, sa past self ko, knowing what I know now, ito yung mga yun. Document the process, document the systems, pero out of all those stuff naman, na-record ko naman yung income. Kasi kung hindi ko rin malalaman na, 100K pala yun looking back. Number 2 is to look into the long term. Consistently check yung performance, set goals, adapt, scale, and sustain. And of course, to have a freaking plan. And number 3, probably to my future self, is to don't be afraid to make mistakes, fail, and to try out new stuff. So you'll never know unless you try. Noong 2020, mas madaling mag-try sa side ko kasi wala akong nilabas na capital. Pero imagine, if sa future, you're gonna invest into something with your hard-earned money, medyo mas mahirap yun in comparison to trying out stuff na low risk lang. Alam ko na I can do it in the future too. The market may change, the factors may change, the situation may change. Wala na yung psychological barrier. Knowing that I just have to consistently adapt, consistently learn, build systems, document everything, and all the operational stuff na natutunan ko for the past 2 years, yun lang yun. No matter what market and no matter what industry that I'm gonna be in. Basically, that's the guiding principle. So if you wanna try it out or if you wanna try something similar, I'd say just go for it. Reach out to people na alam mong makakatulong sa'yo. Lalo na sa social media, it's just easy to reach out to people. They're just one DM away. So who knows? Shoot your shot and just go for what's gonna be best for you. From my mistakes and from my learnings, it's my pleasure na matuto ka sa mga pagkakamali. Pero yeah, that's why I do this. Para hindi ka na rin magkamali or somehow maiwasan mo or it will somehow help you as you go through your journey. Before we wrap up, ikaw ba? Ano yung sinubukan mo nung nag-pandemic? Drop it in the comment box below. Tapos if may tanong ka na pwede natin pag-usapan next time. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment na rin. Kasi it definitely helps boost this video for us to reach out to more people na baka nasa same boat din. That's it for today. Usap ulit tayo next time and catch you on our next conversation.